What if humans were forced to live at the bottom of the ocean? Part 1. The Last Sunset. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, an enormous underwater archive glowed with cold blue light. Billions of holographic memories floated silently through the darkness. A lone historian stood before an ancient recording that had not been opened for thousands of years. The hologram slowly activated. A bright blue sky appeared inside the chamber. Every person nearby stopped moving. Few had ever seen the color of a real sky. The archive identified the recording with a single word: human. Today we will examine the archived history of an extinct species once known as humans. They once ruled the surface of Earth. They lived beneath open skies instead of reinforced domes. They breathed natural air instead of manufactured oxygen. They measured time by the rising and setting of the sun. They believed the ocean was Earth's most dangerous place. They had no idea it would one day become their only refuge. Everything changed in the year 2047. The end did not arrive in a single day. There was no asteroid. There was no nuclear war. There was no alien invasion. Earth simply became impossible to survive on. The atmosphere grew thinner every year. Harmful solar radiation reached the surface in deadly amounts. Massive green storms carried toxic particles across entire continents. Forests died where they stood. Rivers turned dark with pollution. Crops failed across the planet. Coastal cities disappeared beneath rising oceans. Millions searched for somewhere safe. Governments built enormous underground shelters. Scientists accelerated plans for colonies in space. None of them could save billions of people. Humanity was running out of time. Then someone proposed an impossible solution. The answer was hidden beneath the waves. Thousands of meters below the surface, the ocean remained remarkably stable. Deadly radiation could not reach those depths. Temperatures barely changed throughout the year. Deep-sea life continued to survive despite everything happening above. Humanity decided to follow that example. Construction of underwater cities began immediately. Giant robotic cranes disappeared beneath the ocean. Steel foundations were anchored into the seabed. Massive, transparent domes slowly rose from the darkness. Nuclear reactors became artificial suns beneath the sea. Endless algae farms supplied oxygen for the growing population. Engineers worked without stopping. Every completed dome meant thousands of additional lives saved. Families abandoned the surface forever. Children carried only a few personal belongings. Many took photographs of blue skies. Others carried handfuls of soil from their gardens. Some simply looked back one final time. It became known as the Last Sunset. No one watching that final sunset realized what had truly ended. They believed they would eventually return. They were wrong. Humanity had not moved to a new home. Humanity had unknowingly stepped onto a completely different evolutionary path. Part 2. The first generation of the deep. The first underwater cities were never designed to last forever. Engineers expected humanity to return to the surface within a few decades. Every dome was built as a temporary refuge. Time quietly proved them wrong. The surface became more hostile with every passing year. Satellite images revealed continents disappearing beneath toxic clouds. Entire forests turned gray before vanishing forever. The ocean swallowed abandoned coastal skylines. Nobody spoke about rebuilding the old world anymore. Survival became the only goal. Inside the domes, life depended entirely on technology. Artificial sunlight replaced the real sun. Digital ceilings displayed blue skies that no longer existed. Speakers played recordings of birds every morning. Most children believed the sounds had been computer-generated. None of them had ever seen a real bird. Schools preserved Earth's history like an ancient legend. Teachers projected holograms of mountains into dark classrooms. Students stared at forests with silent fascination. Rain became something they could only imagine. One little boy asked whether clouds had truly floated across the sky. His teacher simply smiled without answering. The oldest survivors remembered the truth. Every year, their memories became fewer. Every funeral buried another piece of the surface world. Humanity slowly stopped looking upward. Instead, everyone looked through the glass walls into the deep ocean. Endless darkness surrounded every city. Strange, glowing creatures drifted silently beyond the domes. Giant shadows crossed the darkness without making a sound. Nobody knew exactly what lived beyond the lights. Curiosity slowly replaced fear. Scientists explored deeper every year. New species were discovered almost daily. Some organisms produced their own light. Others survived crushing pressure with astonishing ease. Humanity studied every adaptation. Nature had already solved problems humans were only beginning to understand. Genetic research accelerated faster than ever before. Every discovery offered another lesson in survival. Doctors noticed subtle changes in children born beneath the sea. Their bones were slightly denser. Their muscles required less oxygen. Their hearts recovered faster after physical effort. Their eyes adapted more easily to low light. None of these differences seemed extraordinary. Together, they marked the beginning of something remarkable. Evolution had quietly entered the story. No scientist could stop it. No government could control it. Every newborn carried tiny advantages into the next generation. Every generation drifted a little farther from the humans of 2047. The process was invisible to those living through it. But history would later recognize this period as the first transformation. Humanity believed it had escaped extinction. In reality, extinction had only changed its appearance. The species was not disappearing. It was becoming something new. And the ocean was shaping every generation in complete silence. The age of the deep had officially begun. Part 3. 100,000 years later. 100,000 years passed beneath the ocean. The surface remained completely abandoned. The last city on land had vanished long ago. Wind swept through empty skyscrapers without a single human witness. Nature slowly reclaimed the forgotten continents. Below the waves, civilization continued to grow. Thousands of underwater cities stretched across the ocean floor. Bright blue lights connected them like glowing constellations. High-speed magnetic tunnels carried travelers between distant colonies. The deep ocean had become humanity's new world. Children no longer asked about the surface. They asked what lived beyond the deepest trenches. Exploration replaced nostalgia. Curiosity replaced grief. The old Earth existed only inside protected archives. Evolution had not stopped for a single generation. Every century added another tiny change. Every millennium erased another ancient human trait. The descendants of humanity were stronger than before. Their skeletons had become remarkably dense. Their joints tolerated enormous pressure. Their muscles consumed far less oxygen. Their blood transported oxygen with extraordinary efficiency. Their hearts beat fewer times each minute. Every heartbeat carried more life through their bodies. Their lungs had become smaller but vastly more efficient. Every breath wasted less energy than before. Survival had become beautifully efficient. Their eyes changed even more dramatically. Large pupils absorbed every available photon. Darkness no longer limited their vision. They could detect movement where ancient humans saw nothing. Shadows became as clear as daylight. Their brains processed visual information at astonishing speed. Tiny details could mean survival. Every sense adapted to the deep. Hearing became extraordinarily sensitive. Low-frequency vibrations carried important information. Entire cities could detect distant danger before machines reacted. The ocean itself became part of their nervous system. Language slowly evolved alongside the body. Ancient words quietly disappeared. Nobody used the word desert anymore. Nobody described a sunset. Even the word cloud sounded unfamiliar. New words described pressure, currents, darkness, and glowing life. The culture of humanity had transformed completely. History became sacred. Ancient photographs were treated like priceless treasures. A picture of a tree could silence an entire classroom. A recording of birds brought tears to elderly historians. Children struggled to believe such creatures had ever existed. The surface sounded more like mythology than history. Yet one truth remained impossible to ignore. These people still called themselves human, but their ancestors would barely recognize them. Evolution had quietly rewritten the definition of humanity. The ocean had become both their home and their architect, and this transformation had only just begun. 1 million more years would change everything. Part 4. 1 million years later. 1 million years passed beneath the endless ocean. Earth was still alive, but it no longer resembled the world of ancient humans. The underwater civilization covered thousands of kilometers across the ocean floor. Gigantic living cities glowed softly in the darkness. Towering coral structures replaced steel skyscrapers. Every building was partially alive. Living walls repaired small cracks without human intervention. Giant algae forests purified the surrounding water. Entire districts breathed like enormous organisms. Cities had become ecosystems instead of machines. The descendants of humanity changed with them. Their faces looked strangely familiar, yet unmistakably different. Their eyes became much larger than those of their ancestors. Deep black irises absorbed every fragment of available light. Transparent protective membranes covered their eyes while swimming. Their skin became thicker and remarkably smooth. Pale blue veins shimmered beneath the surface of their skin. Tiny bioluminescent cells slowly evolved across their bodies. Soft pulses of light replaced many facial expressions. Emotion itself became visible through color. Fear produced a sharp violet glow. Calmness spread as a gentle blue light. Curiosity shimmered with soft green patterns. Entire conversations could happen without spoken words. Silence became the natural language of the deep. Sound remained important, but light became equally meaningful. The human brain evolved to read these glowing signals instantly. Misunderstandings became increasingly rare. Cooperation became humanity's greatest survival advantage. Their hearing also reached extraordinary precision. Tiny vibrations traveled across enormous distances through the water. Every citizen could sense approaching movement long before seeing it. Dangerous predators rarely caught anyone by surprise. The ocean itself became an extension of their senses. Children learned to interpret vibrations before they learned mathematics. Schools no longer taught survival. Survival had become instinct. Artificial intelligence still existed, but it no longer ruled civilization. Humans and intelligent biological systems worked together as one network. Living computers grew inside engineered coral. Information flowed through organic neural structures. Technology no longer looked like technology. It looked alive. Ancient submarines were displayed inside underwater museums. Visitors stared at them with quiet amazement. They seemed unbelievably primitive. Ancient diving suits looked almost humorous. Few could imagine living inside such fragile equipment. Beyond the glowing cities, the abyss remained untouched. Colossal creatures drifted silently through absolute darkness. Some were larger than entire cities. Most had never been completely observed. Humanity respected the deep rather than trying to dominate it. They understood one timeless truth. The ocean was still far greater than themselves. Evolution had not made humanity the ruler of nature. It had simply made humanity another masterpiece created by nature. Yet the greatest transformation was still waiting in the distant future. 10 million years would change the meaning of the word human forever. Part 5. 10 million years later. 10 million years passed beneath the silent ocean. Earth was still home to intelligent life, but humanity no longer existed in its original form. Evolution had completed a journey no one in 2047 could have imagined. The descendants of humanity belonged entirely to the deep. Their bodies were perfectly adapted to crushing pressure. Their eyes were designed for eternal darkness. Their skin protected them from freezing water. Their hearts consumed only the energy they truly needed. Every movement flowed effortlessly through the ocean. The surface had become completely hostile to them. Sunlight overwhelmed their sensitive eyes. Dry air damaged their delicate skin. Gravity itself felt unfamiliar outside the water. The descendants of humanity could no longer survive beneath the open sky. Ironically, they had become strangers on their own planet. Their maps no longer showed continents. They showed trenches, currents, and geothermal vents. Their greatest cities surrounded glowing hydrothermal chimneys. Living towers reached upward from the seabed like underwater mountains. Rivers of bioluminescent life illuminated every street. Children laughed beneath oceans instead of beneath clouds. Schools taught pressure before they taught history. Every generation accepted the deep as the natural world. Only historians remembered another age had ever existed. Deep inside the Great Archive, forgotten holograms continued to sleep. One ancient recording was activated once every generation. Millions gathered in silence to witness it. A blue sky slowly appeared above the audience. Gasps echoed through the enormous chamber. The color seemed almost impossible. Birds crossed the holographic sky. Gentle wind moved through green forests. Waves rolled peacefully onto a golden beach. No one in the audience had ever experienced such a world. A small child looked at the historian with quiet confusion. "Did people really live there?" the child asked. The historian remained silent for several seconds. Then another hologram appeared. It showed ordinary humans smiling beneath the sun. Their laughter filled the archive. The recording ended with a single sentence: "We are human." The chamber fell completely silent. The hologram slowly faded into darkness. The historian closed the ancient archive. "They were our beginning," the historian whispered, "but they are no longer our reflection." Millions of blue lights illuminated the underwater city outside. Giant creatures drifted peacefully beyond the transparent domes. The descendants of humanity watched them without fear. They had become part of the ocean itself. Evolution had not destroyed humanity. It had simply rewritten its story. And somewhere beneath 10 million years of water and time, humanity had learned the greatest lesson of all. Survival belongs not to those who resist change, but to those who become it.